Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is gonna be a wet one in Southern California, so you know what they say, rain in the desert. But we are going to dive into the wire tuck on a 2017 Ram 3500. Now, I'm pretty confident in saying this should work on a 2500. I'm also pretty confident in at least saying 15 to 18 should be the same. Dare I say 13 to 18 should be the same. Now, there are a few crucial things you need to remember when you're doing a wire tuck. Number one, I'm just some guy on YouTube. Take that with a grain of salt. Number two, make sure your batteries are disconnected. And number three, please set the wire cutters down, all right? The goal of this wire tuck is to disturb as little factory wiring as possible and allow us to keep the OEM connectivity of this system, okay? CAN bus stuff does not like being spliced with butt splices. It doesn't like even being spliced with solder. You can do repairs on this stuff, but again, the level of skill required to repair some of these new electrical systems is not your local Harbor Freight butt splice. And that is not a stab at anybody. I have been known to use many a butt splice. Just ask around. So I will show you guys here. This is where we're at on our 4th gen. Again, it's raining outside, so, you know, pardon me. But we have essentially exposed the OEM wiring harness out of this plastic cowl. Now, this plastic cowl has these little tabs, okay? Here, 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 here. And you have to pry this cover off right here. And in order to do that, you just simply kind of put a flat blade screwdriver in there, pull the tab, and then you work this back until you get over to that end. Now, what you guys will notice is there are zip ties holding the harness to the ends. So there's a zip tie right there. There's a zip tie right there. And there was a zip tie over there. Now, that is the only part of this that I have skipped, essentially, is I pulled the cover off. Now, when you're looking at your harness, okay, this is the passenger side. This is kind of where your coolant tank's at. You have your hood light if you have a higher trim level truck. You have this part of the wire harness down here, which is your battery ground, a harness ground, your active air box, and your grid heater, okay? This you're not going to move. This ground, do not disconnect right here, okay? This wire harness splits down here to a bunch of connectors, and then you have this part right here that goes into the cab behind the HVAC box. You cannot get to that harness without pulling the dash out. So that was when I thought I was done for. Like, I couldn't do this. Then I came over here and started exposing wires, and I realized, give me a sec here, let me pull this out. We did pull the injectors out, so that's why everything's kind of just dangling over here. But what I did notice was this harness, side of the harness, actually looks like we could work with it. So this big harness right here, oh, come on, it's all caught up now. Give me a sec. Okay, so this ends this part of your harness here. This is my EAS EGT probe from Edge. And then you guys see here, this is all that's left of the harness, this little bit right here. So we follow it around over to here, and you realize it really can't go too far. Okay, there's another ground over here, and then you have your battery cable and a few more wires. So what I'm gonna do off camera is I'm gonna go ahead and cut all of this sheathing, okay, right here off to expose this end of the wire. And all we are after are these wires here. Once we get these wires loose from the harness, what we are going to do is drill some holes in our cowl lift our wiper cowl off and slip all the wires into this cowl. All right, so we will be drilling a rather large hole saw hole to accommodate that ginormous plug there into the underside of the cowl here, feed it across, drop it down right here, and maybe if I'm feeling real froggy, I'll drop another hole right there. So that is what step one is. I'm just simply going to remove the sheathing and see what all is here and what all we have left to do to get all of these wires exposed. Okay, so we are in there like swimwear, guys. I got the battery cable out and we have our whole harness kind of deep in, and you guys can see we have the brake master cylinder sensor. Maybe it's a level sensor. It's only got 2 wires, so yeah. We have our cowl wire here, which I'll be honest, don't know what it goes to. We have this negative battery connector right here. We have obviously a positive wire here, which I don't even know, like, it's thick here and then it tapers down to nothing here, so I'm not really sure what this is. And then we have our ground here that goes to our fender, and then we have our ground here that goes to the battery terminal. So now essentially this whole harness can come out and go that way. I'm gonna work on getting it kind of draped over there so we can start putting our holes in the cowl. What I'm envisioning now is obviously a very large hole over there, a very large hole over here to accommodate the plug. Now you could deepen the plug. I am not that guy. And then over here, we don't need a very big hole. Now for the alternator charging wire that we have removed due to the second battery location, I'm thinking about running it in the cowl. I'm also thinking about running it along the engine here. The cowl becomes a problem because there's so much heat in this back corner with our new let me think here, with our new compounds, excuse me. So I'm thinking the path of least resistance would be to go around the alternator, sneak through there, and go across the front of the engine, very similar to how our grid heater wire was routed from the factory. My other option is we go from the alternator and we go under the intake and go into this fender here and then go around. So we do have a couple options. I'm going to think on it. I do like the fender option, but it does make the wire longer, which isn't the end of the world. Like, I got plenty of wire. And then for the battery relocation, we have settled upon this spot right there. Right here is where it shall live at. We'll weld the battery bracket on there and bolt our bracket there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all kind of swooped over, and then we'll keep going. Okay, so we ran into some snags trying to get the wipers off, but now that I got the whole cowl removed, we might be able to fix that. I've honestly thought about replacing this because some of this trim over here not in good shape, but man, Dodge really, Ram, they really did not want you getting that wiper off. Good Lord, those arms are tough. But we were able to get it out with the 2 bolts. And this is what you're left with. Plenty of space up here. If you guys are ever wondering where your push rods and push rod access holes are, they're right there on the back side. But plenty of room up here to put the cowl. Obviously, we do need to be cognizant of the wiper motor. So I'm going to get the wiper arms separated from the wiper motor assembly and put that back in so we kind of have a good idea of where everything goes. What we have decided on is a 2 1/4 inch hole saw, and I will put a hole here and then a hole here. That will kind of make more of a rectangular shape instead of blowing a 3-inch hole into my cowl. We're going to do 2 2 1/4s next to each other. So the nice part is we'll put the hole in the cowl probably like right back here. Get that harness up and under. I did check with our coolant tank. Now, this is where my setup might be a little different than your setup, so a little bit of forethought goes a long way. Your coolant tank, okay, you need to put it up there and make sure you got enough room because the wires are going to go up through the cowl back here. All right, so we're going to send those up there. This harness here, I don't know yet. I think I might run this and just hide it up in the cowl because we no longer need any of this either. But that's where my head's at. We're going to slowly kind of chip away at that. I've honestly even thought about moving this ground up into the cowl, but I don't know how tricky we want to get. Plus, there's a coolant tank and everything here. And again, guys, we're not trying to go to SEMA or PRI or even our local truck show. We just want something that when you pop the hood, they're like, golly, is that your rig? And you're like, yes, sir, it is. So that's where we're at. Due to, I don't know why Stellantis or Ram, why do they do this to us? They put this freaking weatherproof, like, wrap tape crap here. I know it's for sound deadening, but it is extremely annoying. Yeah, it's a 2-piece cowl. So this is very similar to your generation tray trucks. So we're probably just going to blow an absolute heater through this cowling here because I want the plug to come up about right here. So we'll have to go through here and through the bottom, which no big deal. And then we'll be able to lay it down in the channel. Okay, so we did our 2 staggered 2 1/4 holes right there. You guys saw me test fit the coolant tank. You really don't see much of this at all anymore. I brought this harness up as well. This is your active air box, grid heater, and a ground that goes from the battery. I am thinking about running another ground cable up here from that battery to this just for some continuity. I might look at the schematic a little bit and see, but now you guys are kind of getting the gist. I also think I'm going to drop our drive pressure sensor and EGT probe through the cowl about right here. I feel like that'll be pretty clean. I'm dropping it down through here to get our drive pressure sensor, EGT probe right here. That way we have no wires up here on the cowl. And then over here, we're just kind of working it. Keep in mind, guys, I have never done this before, so I'm kind of learning as I go. The hood light originally goes like down here. I think we can tuck that in here. And then I did order some replacement adhesive backed thermal waterproof matting for this. My goal is to put the wires obviously in loom and then just kind of cheat it through there. Trying to make it waterproof down here because you can't see it. And I don't have any plugs that fit that. I'm gonna take some heater core line and slit it down the middle and just make like a little trim ring to keep the debris out of there. And then I'll probably spray some expanding foam in that hole just to keep it kind of clean. But we're working slowly but surely, kind of just getting it done in the rain. It's fun. We are having fun. This is fun. But yeah, I'll probably start routing some more of the harness and pick up the camera once we get a little closer. I just don't want a 30-minute time lapse of me scratching my head going back and forth. It's not fun to watch. So we'll keep on plugging along, but so far so good. I do apologize. I was on the phone with David while he was driving back from Ohio, and time got the better of me, but there she is, done. All right, there's our battery cable. There's our old plastic cowling, and it looks pretty good. So let me show you underneath the skirt of this old girl. So number one, you'll never see any of this because there's a coolant tank there, but we went up through here. You guys can see we dropped the EGT gauge and the drive pressure sensor down through that hole. And then you guys will see the main connector is now gone and all that stuff is stuffed up there in that hole. And then you'll see right through here, we had to drop our brake sensor and our ground wire for, I assume this is a solid state relay on the ground side. And then if you look back there, you'll see our alternator wire and a couple other wires. So what I did was I stole the battery connection from this side because Stellantis loves to fuse stuff. So our air dog has constant power, our starter has constant power, then it breaks over here to our first fuse. They actually did fuse the battery link cables, so we will grab, this is our alternator, which is fused, and then we're also going to I gotta look at the diagram, so this is kind of temporary, but basically all of this gets full battery power. This is then fused through here, and then I'd assume this is fused, but we're not using this side of it really. This was where the alternator, I think, actually did hook up, so I might slide this wire over here and then put our second battery over here. But yeah, I feel like this looks great. I've never seen a 4th gen wire tucked really at shows or anything, so I kind of didn't know what to expect. It's a little harder than a 3rd gen because you basically have to disconnect this side and go this way. Instead of on a 3rd gen, you start over here and go this way. The 4th gen is definitely more intricate. We did extend a couple grounds. So the way we dealt with the grounds that were over there, which you can see, we left that one on the fender there. But then if you look over here, it's actually double grounded. So we have a ground that goes from this grounding post straight to this battery here. And then I have a ground wire that goes here up into the cowl and connects to some ground. So let me lift the skirt off this old girl here for you. Pretty cool how the cowls on these actually work. They actually have a little lip that bites into the glass right there and right there, right there. You guys kind of see, and then it uses the push clips to hold it down. Now, under here, again, this sensor that was plugged in here, we flipped into here. We dropped wires and our EGT gauge go through here. You guys will see right here is where we dropped our brake sensor and our ground for the battery solenoid or relay right here. We have our wiper back up in here. You guys can see I stuffed the plug back there so the wiper arm can run without any interference. Then over here we got the channel. This is your relays for your grid heater and your active air box wiring right here. I just kind of tucked it up, and then we came up and over. You guys see there, right there, we did put some AN hose where those wires make the hard 90, and that's how we dealt with chafing, as well as put it all in a loom, and that's kind of how it looks. I'm honestly pretty thrilled with how this looks. I think it looks killer. You guys let me know. The only wire that's not going to get tucked, essentially, this one will just kind of get stuffed for the hood light here. And then I ordered some more matting to cover this back up and create a nice waterproof seal somewhat. And like I said, we'll use that expandable foam. But there's like one of the holes we drilled for there, here. I just used AN line, split in half to prevent chafing. I also sanded and deburred all the holes so that way they're not super sharp. But honestly, not a bad project. You guys kind of saw the majority of it. And then once you lay it out, I mean, really it was just looming and figuring out where to drop the holes. So for the EGT and drive pressure, we dropped it like right next to the coolant for the heater box. Then like basically right over the factory for the plug, for the big harness plug there. And then we dropped it right at the wiper plug down for our 2 wires there. And then over here, dropped it down right through there. So all in all, I feel like this looks a lot cleaner. I did put like the one bolt to hold the dipstick and kind of secure that harness, so I kind of knew where it needed to be. And it's really not that hard. Like, and I don't know how you would have captured a lot of this on video. A lot of it was just tape and zip tying and relooming. We used fabric tape, and I get this wire loom from Amazon. Works pretty good. The only critique I might do, I might take an air saw and air saw a rectangle out of this so the cowling's not putting pressure on these wires here. But for right now, we'll just leave it be. But what I envision doing is taking my air saw and just and then bending that down to get these wires flatter. I didn't want to put a bunch of holes in this upper reinforcement here, so we kind of left it be. But there you have it. As far as the battery relocation part, I don't necessarily know if we're going to do a video on that. What you do is I'll probably do an update video on a different video. We're going to weld our bracket on, ground it to the frame. Then once we ground it to the frame, I'll probably run a ground to the engine block from this battery as well, just so we have good ground connectivity. And then you run a positive from here up to this distribution block that we have here. And that should be about it, guys. I was hesitant to even make this a video because I knew it wouldn't be very entertaining, but hopefully that kind of covers the information. We used 2 1/4 inch, and made an oval essentially for the plugs. I used 1 1/4 inch for all the other drop downs, and I just got grommets from Amazon. The loom came from Amazon. And then we extended the harness, which this is that ground splice I'll show you guys right here. Basically spliced it together there and ran our extension. And I do have to put some chafing material there as well for where these go over that I just noticed. But all in all, not bad. Took me about 5 hours plus all the research I did. Hopefully this video makes it a lot easier for you guys. I kind of showed you how the harness disconnects And that was really the most intensive part, was just understanding how all of this works. Just like we talked about, a little air saw action, got that harness down. And then once I kind of had you guys on camera, I realized this was probably too close. So we air hammered this down. I'm gonna put a bracket here with a self tapper that you won't see through the bottom. It's just gonna go through right here to hold that down. And then we can wrap up this video. All right, got a bracket there, no more chafing. Wiper motor can do wiper motor things, and everything's secure. So again, guys, sorry it wasn't like watching me work, but this should be all the steps you need. Very simple, very affordable, just time consuming. So hopefully you guys are liking this content on this tow rig. We're getting closer. We will have, I'm thinking like final intercooler, like converting it to a straight boot with maybe the battery, and then we'll probably have the fuel, push rods, valve springs, and then we'll probably have one more of like final assembly. We also have the suspension video that's halfway done, and then we will test drive it and see how well it does and start the tuning process. So probably at least 4 more videos of this. We are punching it out, trying to get these videos up and relevant with what we're posting on other things. But hey, this is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the challenge and doing something different and trying to make it look nice. And I feel like we're nailing it. Let me know in the comments. Give this one a big thumbs up. Drop your comments down below. Subscribe if you're not already. And as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.